What is the path to make billions of dollars? Mark, give me the backstory. How did you get where you are today? Learn Blitz Scaling. How did you grow your company to 300 employees?
Well, it all starts out actually going back to, I grew up in Connecticut, and my father had a construction company. And I learned pretty quickly that I didn't want to work in construction. And because I had to, I think I'm a little bit older than you, Jay, but back then I had to, school cost us, actually, college was $15,000 a year. I remember that. I went to Bentley College. But at the time, it was 1986, 87. If you remember, if you read about it, Jay, you weren't born at that point, I'm pretty sure. But in 87, there was a massive stock market crash, and my father took a pretty big dive in real estate. So I had to come out of pocket and pay for school myself. So that meant going to work on the crew with him, putting on the hard hat and getting up on top of that roof in 100-degree weather in the summertime and freezing weather in the winter. And that quickly helped me develop my why. And my why is to never, ever, ever carry a hammer again. So, that's kind of my backstory and where I picked up work ethic. My father has tremendous work ethic, or had, and preached always positive and personal development to myself and my two brothers. And, we've all been pretty successful over the years. And both of my brothers played professional hockey. So I don't know if you want to jump into that later, if you're a hockey fan, but we can do that. So anyway, that's kind of my backstory and where it all started.
Cool. And you're Canadian, so the hockey thing makes a lot of sense. And I actually went through something similar. I had to work as a collections agent when I was 18 years old. Spent a year making collections calls for a trucking company and just hated my life.
Nice.
And that year, it was like, I'm never going to be sitting in a cubicle again. I'm never going to answer to my asshole boss ever again. So it's funny talking to other entrepreneurs, hearing similar stories like that, the fire, the motive to go and build what you build, because it's not a normal thing.
Well, that's funny, because it's funny, Jay, that you worked in a call center. I used to run a pretty big call center in the payment space, but whenever entrepreneurs ask me if they have a confidence problem, right? So, for example, I had one of my leaders asked me for a call last week, and she said, look, I have trouble speaking in public. I have trouble, asserting myself. I have trouble with my confidence. I said, I'm going to give you a really good tip. Get a job in a call center and just get yelled at all day long for a couple of weeks, and that's going to increase your confidence pretty quickly. So there's a tip.
Yeah, you got to get used to getting yelled at, to negative reactions, and eventually you become immune to it. I think that definitely helped in terms of my sales skills, my interpersonal skills. But don't get me wrong, getting yelled at on a collections call sucks. All right, Mark, so you've sold a few companies, and now you're kind of specializing in the paid ad space. Talk to me about your journey through entrepreneurship, some of the different verticals that you've worked in, because you weren't always in advertising. Is that correct?
That's right. So out of school, graduated in 92, actually, my brother was being highly recruited by every university in the country, every top university, Boston University, Michigan State, Harvard University, Yale, and he decided to end up going to Boston University, and then was drafted 4th overall by the New York Islanders. And so he had not only colleges after him, but then he had agents and recruiters after him. And I felt that I fell in love with that lifestyle, so the sort of the sports lifestyle, because when I graduated in 92, the economy was terrible again. And all of my classmates were getting jobs at Staples or State Street Bank for about $22,000 a year. And that really didn't interest me. So I got into the agent business, actually representing hockey players. So I worked for my father during the week, and on the weekends I built my agency practice. And then after about a couple of years, I was finally able to throw that hammer away and throw that hard hat away, and concentrate on sports. I built a pretty awesome sports agency. I had 7 guys in the NHL and I think 35 or 36 in the minors. And I was doing that up until I got fired by 2 of my top salaried players, or top earning players, which totally cut into my revenue. So I lost 30% of my revenue overnight, and it quickly stung. And I, learned a pretty good lesson that you want recurring revenue that's diversified. And then, so after that, I actually found somebody that was in a business with a recurring revenue and got into what's called payments. So, if you ever go to the restaurant, give your credit card, there's a payment provider on the back end accepting that transaction. And I found that, that business is amazing, where this guy he was making $30,000 a year A month at that time, which is back in 1997 or 98, which was huge money back then. And he had about 2,000 clients. So he really didn't care if he lost, 2, 3, 10 clients, didn't hurt him. But whereas I was in the agent space and I had 2 of my NHLers fired me, and it really hurt the bottom line. So that got me into payments. And then I can keep going, Jay, but I'm sure you have another question.
Yeah, and I love that discussion about monthly recurring revenue, having a predictable revenue source and a diversified one. And this is something that we encounter every time we raise our prices, right? Do we want to have 500 clients paying us $2,000 a month or 100 clients paying us $8,000 a month? And that's always kind of a tough one for us to realize. Obviously, it's easier to manage less clients, but you become more reliant on them. It sounds like you kind of face something similar with your hockey players.
I'm going to give you a solution. Get this book right here. And he's probably going to be speaking at the conference you're going to tomorrow. But that'll teach you how to raise your prices and get more clients at the same time. So,
yeah, and believe it or not, I'm currently listening to the audiobook right now. For those of you listening and not watching, he held up $100 million by Alex Hormozi, who, if I'm sure you've heard his name at this point, he has swept the entrepreneurial space over the past year. He's absolutely blown up. I'm about 2 hours into the book, and I've already gotten some magic from him. So are you a big Hormozi fan?
I actually was just introduced to him about a couple months ago. So I am now. I've just become, I think he's a phenomenal sales guy. He understands funnels. He understands, offers, big ticket offers, which we're launching. Actually, we're getting into that now. We're launching a big ticket consulting offer for TikTok. And we've already driven in a bunch of clients on that side. So, and you're going to help me on that, Jay. You're going to help me drive in some great clients for that.
Oh yes, sir. You know it. And for those of you listening, Alex Hormozi is very high level, talks a lot about sales, marketing, but his thing is charge more. And acquisition.com, we actually have a call with them next week to see if they're interested in our PR firm. We'll see if that's a real thing. But I listened to a podcast that they did, and they said the first thing that they do when they come into a company is double the prices or raise the prices to a point where you are now a premium product, and you just build an unrejectable offer out of the services that you provide. So really interesting concept. And it sounds like you're applying that to your company, and that you believe that you should charge more and have more clients, and you can do both. Is that true?
Yeah, I do believe that. I believe in his theory of creating a category of one. We've dominated, just to give you a background. So we've been involved in TikTok since the ad platform came out 2.5 years ago. We're actually one of the top, I think we're number 10 in Canada of beta testing the ad platform. So we've created, and we're the number one spender right now on TikTok. So we've been able to create an expertise. We've got over 200 creators that are creating videos for us on a daily basis, and we're pumping out, 600-700 ads on a daily basis. So we understand it, and we've gained a pretty good expertise. So I actually think we are in the category of one that gives us the ability to charge almost whatever we want to consult people on growing out a profile and crushing it on TikTok, because that's what we're doing. And yeah, so I love the message, and we're applying it right now. We're making it work and it real.
I guess another thing that would be important to talk about when it comes to scaling, and we do this, we hyper specialize in public relations. That's our wheelhouse, that's our thing. And clients ask us all the time for other forms of digital marketing services. But we decide to stay in our lane very strategically, I think. And it sounds like your expertise is in TikTok. And that's kind of your bread and butter offer. But do you offer services outside of TikTok? And have you seen that as a successful way to scale the company?
Well, we're using, I wouldn't call us a service company, because we're a performance marketer where we drive traffic in verticals that are highly profitable. Mm-hmm. So we were speaking earlier, I was telling you about education or lending or, insurance or auto or dental, we were talking about, and those verticals are highly profitable for us. And we use any single traffic source that we can that is profitable. So Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, and TikTok, but TikTok happens to be our expertise and represents about 65% of our revenue. So we have a high focus on that platform.
And I've noticed in my own company, TikTok seems to be doing the best. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's because it's new? Not a lot of people are advertising on there?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you go back to Facebook 10 years ago, so I had a business sandwiched in between one of my payments company, two of my payments companies. I had a business in health and fitness, and we were using Facebook. And Facebook at that point, 11 years ago, actually, was so easy to get clicks, to get likes, to get views on your videos, and to grow a user base. And then all of a sudden they switch it. So the same thing's going to happen. Same thing happened to Instagram a few years later. And the same thing will happen with TikTok. It's just that TikTok is right now in the growth phase. So it's very easy to grow a following. And I'll give you a few examples later. But so it's on the growth phase, and you want to jump in now. And, Vaynerchuk talks about jumping in to platforms early, and TikTok is that situation, in that situation right now. But, I can see that over the last 2.5 years, they're starting to tighten up on their policies. It's getting harder and harder to get certain verticals approved. It's just the natural course of business. Facebook, we went through it with Facebook, we went through it with Instagram, and now it's going to be the same thing with TikTok.
Do you think there's certain verticals that TikTok ads work best for and worst
Absolutely.
for? Talk to me a little
100%.
bit about that.
Well, I mean, we're seeing education works amazing. We're seeing a lot of the cosmetic verticals work amazing. Anything that caters to, let's say, Gen Z and female demographics. Mm-hmm. Some of the verticals that don't work, many that are catered to sort of manly or men verticals or male verticals don't work as well. But if you cater it to women / Gen Z, then it works tremendously well.
All right, very cool. Mark, let's talk about scaling. You have 300 employees now, all remote, based on our conversation.
That's correct. At one point they weren't, but now they are.
How do you get from 0 to 300 employees in 4 years? Talk to me through that journey. What were some of the steps, the milestones, the hurdles that you had to face and conquer to grow to that massive team? 300 is massive.
So we were in end of 2019. This is about September. So Q3 of 2019, we were 5 employees. And I was sitting at my desk and I literally said, I'm not interested in this bullshit. I want to grow a big company, right? I'm not here to have 5 employees. It's just not going to happen. So we made a decision to blitz scale. So I took my chief operating officer and I said, we're going to literally blitz scale. And I threw a book at him called Blitz Scaling by Reid Hoffman. And I said, read that. This is what we're doing. So what is blitz scaling? It's basically, in my definition of it, is a bit different than what Reid Hoffman's is, because his is based around having a tremendous amount of VC capital or private equity money. Ours was bootstrapping. So we took every single penny of profit and rolled it into revenue generation only. So that's sales, marketing, biz dev, media buyers, anything that's going to move the needle on revenue. So that's my definition of it. So you take all of your profits and you literally grow the top line as far as you can until things start blowing up. Right? You don't fill it with back office or support or HR or legal or anything like that until you absolutely need it. So make the fires burn so bright until you absolutely need the back office. So that's kind of my definition of blitz scaling. It worked for us. We went from, so we had 5 in September. By December, we had 30 employees. And then by just before COVID, we had about 45 employees. And then, from 45, next milestone is 150 to 200. And then we blitzed it all the way to 300.
So all of those employees that you added during that time where you were focused your profits on revenue generating, were those employees service and support to support the customers that you were bringing in?
No service, no support, media buying. That's it. Media buying. And the media buyers actually had to double as graphic designers and as support, but we brought in sales and media buying. That's it. That was our focus.
So that's quite the recruiting machine that you probably have developed to get to 300 employees. Where did you find everybody? And did you use a recruiting service? Did you build one internally? What has that been like? Has there been a lot of turnover?
We recruit all internally. We didn't use any external recruiting. And actually, myself and my CEO, we hired the first 35 employees, and then we finally, allowed the managers, people that we moved up the ranks. And obviously, you're going to make mistakes. By the way, just so you know, Jay, if you blitz scale, you will make mistakes, and you have to correct those mistakes pretty quick. You're going to hire the wrong person, just the nature of the beast. It's just going to happen, but you have to course correct quickly and move on, and don't be afraid to let people go quickly, because a bad apple can definitely spoil the bunch. I know that's a cliche, but it's absolutely true. And we base our hiring on certain attributes: positivity, can-do attitude, awesome attitude, smiles, great energy is basically how we base our hiring on. And if you don't have those qualities after working for us, then we're going to let you go. I mean, pretty quickly. So you can somebody can have a great game face on an interview, but over the first month, 2 months, 3 months, you're going to find out who somebody is, and if they want to go to the extra mile or not, and if they want to be a team player or not. If they're not, you're gone. If you are, then you can create a company quickly. So that's kind of some advice.
What are some problems that you ran into during the scaling phase of your company, and how did you conquer them?
Hiring the wrong people, hiring bad apples, hiring people that are negative, and you conquer them by letting them go quickly. You're not going to change somebody from a negative person to a positive person. Just not going to do it. I mean, I wrote a book just called the Lucky Formula, and in the book talks about positivity and your mental state and how you think, and how you actually, I do talk about blitz scaling in the book as well, and how to do it, and I really focus on energy and positive mental attitude, and that's a huge thing throughout your organization. So if you have somebody that doesn't have those attributes, you have to let them go. So that's one big thing. I mean, we made mistakes on hiring, which is normal. Other things, things were burning bright, like we didn't have enough people in accounting. We didn't have an HR team, so we made some mistakes on how we fired certain people. I know you have to take certain steps and do it the right way. As an entrepreneur organization, you're going to do things fast and make mistakes, but you take the good with the bad, and you course correct as you go along.
It's funny. Those are things that I've noticed in my company too. One, it takes a lot of time and money to hire and train somebody. So if you can get a lot of the mistakes filtered out during the hiring process, that saves us a ton. And then you're right, we've run into some major issues with firing people. So let's talk briefly. Is there anything that you've implemented to filter out the bad apples before you spend the time and money to train them?
Well, it's the questions you ask, right? So there's a great book. It's up on my bookshelf over there by Jack Welch called Winning. And he basically gives you the playbook on how to hire properly. And he calls it, I want to say it's his 3 P's and 1 E. And the E is energy. And then the P's are positivity, productivity, and I forget the other one. But anyway, we use exactly that to a T. And it's the questions you ask, right? And, so I'll give you a buddy of mine, Howard, how he actually hires people, which I think I'm going to definitely take this on now, that when we're hiring for, higher level employees, spend a full 24, not a full 24 hours, but a full day with that person. Throughout the day, you're going to get to really know that person, and they're going to get to know you, and be yourself, flat out be yourself. And if you are, then you're going to see that person's reactions to, are you cursing it by your desk? Are you whatever you are, be yourself. And so, his name is Howard, and he's built a phenomenal business, which is going to be $1 billion business really close. And so, I'm going to take, I think, a lot of his teachings and implement that moving forward in our company.
I like that a lot. Invite them in for the day when you're about to hire them and get to know them really well. I might implement that as well. And talk to me about some of the mistakes that you've made with firing. So we've also dealt with some issues, implemented some strategies like exit agreements, which I thought would be common sense, but it wasn't. We didn't think about it until it was too late. So do you have any advice for entrepreneurs who are scaling quickly that need to, say, fire fast when there's a bad apple?
Well, you want to fire, within the first 2 to 3 months, and then there's no liability whatsoever. You want to do it the right way. You want to get this document you're talking about. So you want to get a release letter. And what I've always done is I always pay them out their 2 weeks, regardless if they're really bad apple or not. And there's not much they can say negative about you. So make sure what I wouldn't do is not pay somebody. As much as you might hate that person or despise that person, give them the 2 weeks and move on. I mean, we recently had a situation where I let go a top level exec and I had to pay out big money, way more than 2 weeks. And, look, it was my mistake to bring that person on, but so I had to eat. It was big money, but I'm like, all right, I'll pay it out. As much as I didn't want to pay it out, I paid it out, and everything was cool and there were no problems after. So you just don't want to have problems. Don't withhold money just to save, 2 weeks of salary. It's not worth it. Just not worth the headache.
Do you do all of the firing yourself, or do you have your HR department manage all of it?
I only. So here's a tip for you, right? If you want to build a big business, you've got to hire the right people, and you've got to get out of their way and let them manage. You should have 4, 5, 6 maximum people reporting into you, and that's it. And then, so the only people you're going to fire are those 5 or 6. And if you do your job right and you hire right, you're not going to fire those people, because those are going to be the people that you grow with and you mentor to be phenomenal employees. But you never get into the weeds. If you want to grow a massive company, you should not be, trying to micromanage their departments for them. Let them do it.
I love that. And talk to me about your company structure. Obviously, with 300, I'm sure you've got some good management in place. Do you have a CMO, a COO, a CFO? And at what point did you implement those positions?
Well, I act as the CEO and the CFO right now, but I've got a controller that handles, let's call it, that's the CFO light. So he handles all of the financial stuff. I just, kind of oversee. And I need to know, just so you know, I do a daily cash flow sheet. So I call it my cash on hand sheet. I actually think it's pretty brilliant. Nobody else out there has it. And I've been asking plenty of people, but I know exactly how much cash we have on hand any given second of the day. So, I think cash is the lifeblood of any business. So you have to understand that. We've got a chief operating officer, and then we've got we're going to hire a CMO. We don't really need it in our structure, but we've got, heads of divisions across. But reporting into me directly right now, there are only 3 people. And I like to keep that as limited as possible, because I want to be freed up so that I can dream the next big opportunity for us. I don't want to get into the weeds on day-to-day stuff.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And your goal with this company, and maybe with your previous companies, is it to grow a massive behemoth and keep it? Or is the plan to exit this company and move on to the next thing?
Right now we're in serious growth mode. So, yeah, it depends. If the number was huge, then I would think about it, right? It all depends. But at one point, I do want to grow a company from 0 to multi-billions. I know you're in Florida, Jay. I want to buy the Florida Panthers and win the Stanley Cup. So to do that, I need to be a multi-billionaire. So that's the target.
What is the path to make billions of dollars? I always wonder, outside of software, seems pretty hard. It doesn't seem like the agency life really gets you there. So what is your trajectory? How do you plan to get to multi-billion dollars? I
think we can do it. I don't consider us an agency. I think all we'd have to do is, I believe our company's worth about $100 million. So I think all we have to do is 10x what we're doing right now. And I think it's very, very doable. Because we do have a creator network. We do have some value within the company that is far outside what you would think of a typical agency, right? So we've got media buying, we've got creative, we've got our consulting business. So we've got, certain lines in that can at any point just multiply pretty quickly and get to that mark. So I think I could 10x this thing.
I believe it too. And when you make your $1 billion, I'm going to come to a Panther game.
There you go. You can be
like
in
a
the owner's
blast.
box, Jay, sitting right next to me.
I'll hold you to it. You brought up a couple of books throughout the conversation. I can tell you're a big reader. You've had a lot of mentors that have kind of guided you to where you are today. Talk to me about some of those influences.
Well, I'll give you a story to kind of accentuate that. So back in 2009, I started a company called EVO Canada, which was in the payment space. And I hadn't really had a mentor up until then. I just kind of was working off of kind of, my gut. And so I was, in 2009, launched it. So quickly we got to about 115 employees, really quickly, within 6 months. And then within another 6 months, it grew to another 100. So 215 employees a year and a half in. And I was sitting at my desk and I was completely stressed out and freaked out. I was looking at my computer and there was almost 1,000 unopened emails. And I kind of wanted to jump out the window, to be honest with you. So I right there, then and there, knew I needed a coach and a mentor. So I was typing on Google. I was like, coach, mentor, business mentor, blah. Tony Robbins kept on coming up. And he had an event called Business Mastery, which was about 3 weeks after I was looking. And it was 10 grand. And I was like, 10 grand for a conference. I was like, I thought that was crazy. But I bit the bullet and swallowed the pill, spent the 10 grand and had a phenomenal experience. He found out that, I'm the problem. I found out that I was the ego center. That why did I have to be on every single distribution list? Why did I have to be on, the customer service list? Why did I have to know what's going on in HR, in legal, in here and there? Why did I have to know all that? That's why you hire the right people to be in the right departments. And if you have to know all that and you have to micromanage, that means you don't have the right people and you don't trust your people. So I learned that it was kind of like a slap in the face, that I was the problem with my company. And so I came back from that event and quickly fired 3 of my senior people and replaced them. And it was like a load off my back. I was like, oh my God. Like my email, and took myself off of every single email distribution list, and went down from 1,000 to probably 30 emails a day. It was unbelievable. So mentoring and coaching is huge. From Tony, I went to Dan Sullivan, which is head of strategic coach, which has been huge for all of my businesses and the people that I met there. And I've been to a bunch of, conferences, and you're going to Funnel Hackers. I've been to Dave Asprey's events, and so a lot, tons of events over the years. And I try to get to an event once a quarter. And I think trade shows, conferences, stuff like that, asking a lot of questions is key.
I've always wondered about the effectiveness of Tony Robbins' business conference. Obviously, he's like the personal development guy. You got a lot of value out of that conference?
Ton of value, because it wasn't just him. He brought experts in every aspect of your business. So he brought an expert in sales, an expert in marketing, an expert in finance, an expert in legal and customer service. So he broke down every piece of your business. And it was pretty cool in that event. I think there were about 2,000 or 3,000 people there, and every session he would take somebody from the crowd and interview them. And he had a section on sales funnel, right? So top of the funnel, how many leads do you have, all the way down to the final sale. And I'm like, that's my business. I'm going to be the guy he talks to. So I literally stood on my chair, and Tony's up there talking and talking about how important the sales funnel is. And finally he looks at me, sir, how can I help you? So anyway, Tony and I went back and forth for 45 minutes. It was pretty awesome. And, but all that to say is that he does bring in the experts, and it's not just him 16 hours a day going crazy on stage. So he brings in the experts, that the true experts of the topic.
Very cool. And he's the king of conferences, so I have no doubt that he puts on a world-class conference regardless of the topic. How about books that you recommend? You've already spoke about a couple, but talk to me about some of the books that have turned you into the entrepreneur that you are today.
Can I just look up on my bookshelf and give you a few?
Let's go. Let's do this thing right now.
All right. So there's Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins. There's The 4-Hour Body by Tim Ferriss. There's Jack Straight from the Gut, Jack Welch. There's Bold, which is by Peter Diamandis. Tools of Titans, Tim Ferriss. You got Tell to Win by Peter Guber. I mean, there's some Winning by Jack Welch. I mentioned that earlier. You've got Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. They Call Me Ted. What else? Elon Musk, Richard Branson, Economic Indicators. I mean, I can go down the list. There's probably on this bookshelf, there's, I don't know, 600-700. Richard Branson.
Those are great. I've read probably more than half of those. The other ones are on my list. So definitely an awesome reading list for everybody. If you had to pick one book.
If you want a good reading list, you're going to go right in this book, and I have all of them in the back. But if I'm going to pick one book, I'm going to tell you one of the best ones. And I actually sat next to this guy at my last conference, which was in July. It's Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. He's a negotiator was a negotiator for the FBI, the top negotiator. And he teaches you negotiations, sales tips, and how to always win. And it's pretty awesome. He's actually a cool guy as well.
I have not heard of that one. So thank you for the new suggestion. I always love hearing new books from entrepreneurs such as yourself to add to the list. So if you're listening to this, I'll drop a list of those in the show notes so you can check out that reading list. I think that's always really helpful. Mark, what are you? I know you're in full scale mode. Is there anything that me or the audience can do to support and find you and follow your journey on social media?
Yeah, well, you can follow me on Instagram at Mr. Lucky. So it's MISTER Lucky Official. And I'm actually, Jay, going to give your audience a gift right now, a free gift, which is the Lucky Quiz. And I expect you to take this Lucky Quiz, Jay. So it gives you your luck score, your ability to catch luck on a scale of 0 to 100. And you can find that at theluckyformula.com/quiz. Again, theluckyformula.com/quiz. And it's going to give you, like I said, your score and then tips and tricks on how to get that score up and into the upper echelons of catching luck.
Well, I promise you I'll take that quiz. And if you're looking for the quiz, also going to be in the show notes. Mark, final piece of advice for entrepreneurs listening to this that want to find success, want to scale a company to the size of yours. What is something that you can share with them?
Hang around with people like Jay. Don't hang around with people that are not considered, let's say, people that are high flyers, because you're not going to grow. You're definitely not going to grow if you hang around with negative thinkers. But look, Jay's going to funnel hackers. You probably go to events all the time, so you want to hang around with people like Jay Feldman. That you want so you're the average. You heard this Jay 1,000 times, I'm sure, but you're the average of the 5 people you hang around with. Famous quote by Jim Rohn. And if your 5 are all top flyers like Jay, you're going to be a rock star. But if they're not, then you're going to have trouble growing. So you need to clean out your Rolodex, clean out the people you hang around with on a regular basis, and that's look, your mind is precious and your mind share is precious. You don't want negative BS in that. You want just, can-do attitude and positivity and, let's do this. So that's my last piece of advice.
Hey, there's never been something more true. Your inner circle is going to be who you turn out to be and how big you can grow to be. So Mark,
Absolutely. Thank
you for joining me on this. I'm happy to have you in my circle as my mentor. If you want to make that last minute move and come to funnel hacking, you let me know. We'd love to buy you a drink.
All right, you got it. I would look up, by the way, Howard Getson. Genius, man. Look him up. He's going to be there.
Thank you for joining me, brother.
All right, you got it. Thanks, Jay.